Good evening and welcome to Revolution Evolution. I'm your host, Gregory of Revolution Evolution, and it feels great to be back in the saddle. But we have some topics that I feel needs to be discussed. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the Canadian wildfires and more climate destruction from what is going on in Canada in terms of the climate crisis itself and a pipeline project that even Joe Biden is involved with himself. So we're going to have fun with this show tonight. There's an article even on the Mountain Valley Project that nobody wants to have. When in a time that we need to be transitioning from fossil fuels over to 100% renewable energy and green energy, we need to be transitioning from fossil fuels over to hemp fuels so that way we can have a sustainable planet. And I'm also being joined tonight with Dee from Around the World with Dee and Friends,
I'm happy to be here.
Guest of on her show, and I'm glad she's joined me tonight.
I'm very happy to be here, Greg. This is such an important topic. I'm so glad you are talking about this tonight.
I'm also glad because this is getting crazy in terms of the climate crisis that is unfolding in our country. We have a major climate crisis. We have deadly heat waves that are transpiring all across the world, especially right here at home where temperatures are exceeding more than 110 degrees Fahrenheit. We've got smoky conditions, which is causing hazy conditions even here in South Georgia, where I'm from. There's even normally you won't see this haze, but it has been hazy here for even a week.
And people with normally breathing problems that have had it under control are going to the emergency room because it's just too much. Their medication is not working.
I'm even
So this
seeing
is
where
serious.
the people who had their masks during the COVID-19 pandemic have brought their masks back out because of the respiratory issues that have transpired as well from all of this. And
Our
this is
president is
only
not
going to
addressing it.
get worse.
Right, and the president and his administration are not addressing this issue. This is a war on our country, on our people. This is a climate war.
It is a war that not a single weapon is fired except by the actions of those who are in government who have a moral obligation to either act on the climate crisis and declare a climate emergency or face more irreversible harm. And this brings me to a video right here that I received last night that I wanted to play in tonight's show. And this is from Democracy Now! And it is titled A Canadian Climate Activist, where she is discussing how big oil is fueling the fires, and we seriously need to stop funding new fossil fuel pipelines.
We turn now to the climate crisis and its impacts being felt across the United States from the Midwest to the East Coast as millions face record heat and horrible air quality from smoke unleashed by the Canadian wildfires, hundreds of them. About 20 states that are home to nearly a third of the American population are under air quality alerts, including Chicago. You gotta smell it now. Now you gotta smell it.
See, I've even been seeing screenshots of these air quality alerts being posted by friends on Facebook. Like they have never we have never had air quality alerts being put out there until this crisis.
So I keep a mask on at all times to protect our elders. And so, but now I think we need a mask on for this too.
I feel like we should fix this if we can. It seems like we should be doing something about it.
Meanwhile, in Canada, Toronto's air quality is among the worst in the world due to the wildfire smoke. This comes as more than 45 million Americans are living in places that were under heat alerts Wednesday. A heat dome is lingering over Texas, where temperatures have reached some of the hottest on Earth. California is expecting a heat wave this weekend. An increased use of solar power in Texas has reportedly helped to stop the state's energy grid from collapsing. Meanwhile, new report by the group Stand.Earth and the University of Waterloo shows pension funds with major fossil fuel stocks have been tanking compared to those divested in order to reduce their carbon footprint. For more, we're joined by longtime Canadian climate activist Sephora Berman, International Program Director at Stand.Earth and chair of the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty Initiative. Her most recent article for The Guardian titled "Canada is on Fire and Big Oil is the Arsonist." You know, Sephora, here in the United States, we are hearing about the terrible effects, and we experience them in New York, of the apocalypse caused by the Canadian wildfires. But we don't hear about how Canadians are dealing with these 500 wildfires. Can you talk about what's happening there, and then this larger connection to the climate catastrophe?
Absolutely. Thanks, Amy. What's happening across the country is devastating. What we need to remember is that this is the beginning of wildfire season in Canada. So we have now, as you said, close to 500 fires burning across the country. Officials are saying at least 200 of them are out of control and could burn the entire summer. So there has been over 8 million hectares of forest destroyed already this fire season. That's about 20 million acres. 120,000 people have had to be evacuated and leave their homes. And of course, the smoke is choking people in Toronto and Ottawa and Montreal and now throughout the United States.
Sephora, could you elaborate? Let's go to the article that you wrote, "Canada is on Fire and Big Oil is the Arsonist." Could you elaborate? What are the points that you make there?
Well, just 2 weeks ago, new scientific research from the Climate Hub of the Union of Concerned Scientists made a direct and measurable link between the increase in wildfires, not only in Canada, but also in the United States, and the carbon emissions from major fossil fuel producers. In fact, they looked at the Carbon Majors study, and they showed that there are 88 companies that are responsible for the emissions that are trapped in our atmosphere today and literally smothering the earth, causing this dramatic increase in wildfires, the heat domes that you talked about, the floods, extreme weather. And so these 88 companies are directly responsible for what we're experiencing right now. 13 of those companies are in Canada. We hear a lot about the smoke, but people aren't really talking about the fact that 86% of the emissions trapped in our atmosphere today, they come from three products: oil, gas, and coal. And the fossil fuel industry, it has been shown in courts across the world and in the United States that...
You know what happens when the trees are all burnt and you have no more trees left on the planet? What about the bees that are being killed right now as a result of this? The lack of trees, the lack of bees, it's choking our planet. You see these trees burning and smoldering and charred. That there is the lungs of the earth that helps the earth filter out carbon. That's why we need a global Green New Deal.
in some ways, this is like big tobacco when they knew decades ago. Except they're not just poisoning us; they're poisoning our whole families, and they're threatening the air we breathe and a stable climate.
Sephora, could you speak in this context about the Trans Mountain Pipeline and the Trudeau administration's response to it?
In a lot of ways, we talk about the big areas of carbon that are still underneath the ground, the oil, the fracked gas, the coal that is still underneath the ground as carbon bombs. And the Trans Mountain is the Trudeau lit a fuse to one of the largest carbon bombs on the planet. What's really fascinating right now is that we're seeing investors pull away from major fossil fuel projects, not just in Canada, but around the world, because they know that renewables are cheaper, and they can see that climate policy is going to have to constrain fossil fuel projects if we're going to keep the world safe. And so investors pulled out of Trans Mountain, and the government turned around and funded it with public dollars. Now close to well over $20 billion of taxpayers' money has gone into this pipeline project that crosses 3,000 streams. That would be
what happens if one of those oil pipelines bursts over a stream, a river? It's going to contaminate. It's just like the scenario in East Palestine, Ohio, where that toxic chemicals went straight down that river and out into the Gulf of Mexico. Just think about that for a minute.
If it goes forward, and right now it's...
And also that's going to poison the drinking water for millions of people as well if one of those oil pipelines bursts.
Being built, it's going to facilitate the expansion of the oil sands, which is one of the dirtiest oils on Earth. At a time when we know demand for oil is peaking and going down, because around the world we're moving to renewable energy and electric cars. But there was a time when we all thought with climate policy that if demand went down, then fossil fuels would just be constrained. But every government wants to be the last barrel sold. So they're keeping these projects alive, like Prime Minister Trudeau did, by subsidizing them or even outright buying them. And that's why. Sorry.
Sephora Berman, I want to ask you two last questions. I mean, clearly here the hope is activism. That's what changes things. You're a longtime Canadian activist. We're actually speaking to you in Cuernavaca, Mexico, not where you fled to. You're going back to Canada today, but where there is an environmental conference. Can you talk about that activism and also the Pathway Alliance's connection to the Canadian fossil fuel industry and their Let's Clean the Air campaign?
It's a particular kind of hubris that the Pathway Alliance right now is pushing ads across the country. Let's Clear the Air campaign.
And explain what the Pathway Alliance is.
So the Pathway Alliance is an association of some of the largest oil and gas companies in Canada. This is their new advertising campaign to try and convince people that they're part of the solution. But the fact is that we now have studies over the last month that show that the oil companies' net zero plans are meaningless. This week, Shell announced it's going to increase production. And the work of Influence Map has shown us that these companies are spending literally billions on advertising to show that they're green and they're investing in renewables and carbon capture. But the fact is that over 90% of their investment is in new oil and gas, expanding the problem. So, the fact is that these are the most powerful companies on Earth, and this lobby has been holding us back from addressing the climate emergency. And that's why it's critical that citizens stand up and call on our governments to stand up to big oil and protect people. It's essential that we organize. Organizing for divestment in the last decade has resulted in $40 trillion being moved out of fossil fuels. And just yesterday, a new report shows that if pension funds across North America had divested 10 years ago, then they would have saved literally $21 billion billion. It makes sense to do this now. It doesn't make sense to continue to invest in new oil, gas, and coal, but our governments continue to do it because the lobby is just so powerful. And they're going to continue to push for more fossil fuel development because they're still making billions in profits. In fact, last year was the most profitable year ever for the fossil fuel industry. So we need people to stand up to this industry. We need activism to protest in the streets, to demand our government stand up to this industry. And we also need international cooperation. And that's why people around the world are now calling for a fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty.
That's something that we've been needing to work on for well over a decade now. Fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. So she's right. We should have been working on that over a decade ago.
Complement the Paris Agreement because the Paris Agreement doesn't constrain the production of fossil fuels. And we know today that we need to ensure absolute emissions and production decline. So we need to protest at home and we need to call on our governments to cooperate urgently to stop.
3 words: dump the corruption. If you want to remove all of this fossil fuel money in politics, then you are going to have to dump the corruption in politics. When it comes to environmental justice, you're going to have to make those who take money from the fossil fuel industry very toxic in nature and make it them toxic to the people. Like, look at the toxic air quality that is going on and all the devastation that's going on. Look at the deadly heat waves that's happening. That should be a sign that, hey, we need to dump these politicians who are bought and paid for by these said industries so that way we can take advantage of true environmental justice. So that way we can clean up our atmosphere. We can clean the air, clean the water. So that way we can have a better and more sustainable planet for the future. And what she was going over, I found an article over on Truth Out, and it's exactly states what she was saying about what Justin Trudeau did, where he essentially did light a fuse to even more climate devastation. And this article from Truth Out says Justin Trudeau lit a fuse to one of the largest carbon bombs on Earth, she said. And right here it says, as wildfire smoke fills the skies and record heat waves cook much of North America, Canadian climate activist Sepra Berman says governments need to be pushed to phase out fossil fuels more rapidly. We need people to stand up to this industry. We need activism to protest in the streets to demand our governments stand up to this industry. And we do also need international cooperation, says Berman. She also discusses Canada's investment in the Trans Mountain Pipeline, which is what lit the fuse to the carbon bombs, and how governments around the world are propping up the fossil fuel industry rather than embracing a transition to clean energy. Her recent article in The Guardian headline, Canada is on fire and big oil is the arsonist. And there's a full transcript to this article, and it's a really great article here. So I'm not going to read over the transcript per se, but I'll read over this. This comes as more than 45 million Americans are living in places that were under heat alerts Wednesday. A heat dome is lingering over Texas, where temperatures have reached some of the hottest on Earth. California is expecting a heat wave this weekend, and increased use of solar power in Texas has reportedly helped to stop the state's energy grid from collapsing. Meanwhile, a new report by the group Stand.Earth and the University of Waterloo shows pension funds with major fossil fuel stocks have been tanking compared to those that have divested in order to reduce their carbon footprint. For more, we're joined, well, we do need to reduce the carbon footprint. We seriously do. And there's not only heat alerts going out that we're not that we're also we're having heat alerts here in Georgia. I received on my phone today a heat alert that is supposed to last throughout Monday. So the heat wave that just went through Texas is now here in Georgia. And it's going to get even worse. We're going to see even more deadly heat waves.
And think about this. Not everybody has the capacity to have air conditioning.
No,
and
they
there are
do
people
not.
that are living in the woods. There are people that are homeless. And they're living in this. They're living out with the smoke. They're living with the heat.
I can't begin to fathom, you have these people who are also homesteaders who have the choice not to have air conditioning in their homes. Like they're being cooked as well in their own homes.
Mm-hmm. And some people can't afford it.
Yeah, because of how high energy rates have been going.
Yes.
We have these wildfires, which is to every. Have you been looking at the air quality index lately?
Yes. It's
Just
terrible.
yesterday, throughout all this with the Canadian smoke, the Canadian wildfire smoke, I checked my phone yesterday. At one period of time, we was between 100 and 110 points on the air quality index right here in my rural community in South Georgia.
Mm-mm.
That is not normal.
No, it's not
Usually
normal.
normal for us, the highest that I've seen it before this was around 45. Around 45 to 50, that's on a normal day.
And normally you don't get those alerts. This is a recent thing, getting these alerts. Hi, Kay.
Howdy, Kay. Thank you for joining, my friend. Glad to see you. But
Yes.
Kay, up there where you live, have you been getting air quality alerts? Because we need to seriously check into all this. Like, I have been seeing so many instances here recently, especially over the last, God, I don't know, maybe the last 2-3 weeks, where there have been many air quality alerts going to the phones from the emergency alert systems.
And that's not normal. It's not normal.
That's not normal at all. This is well outside of the realm of normalcy.
And Kay's been getting many alerts.
Yeah, she's been getting many alerts. I normally don't have any problems respiratory wise, but here lately my sinuses has even been acting up. And I've kind of gotten mild sinus related headaches from it.
My sister's been getting that too. And it's the air quality that's getting her sick too.
It's getting insane to think about all this. Like, there have been instances where I've been looking even around Atlanta, they've been getting some air quality index alerts. And I'm sure they were getting air quality index alerts even when the train derailment happened in East Palestine, like around that whole area. I'm sure the air quality index was astronomical as well, along with this.
I just think the fires and all that, the air is a mess to begin with from everything that happened. And the stuff gets into water, and plus the water that's been polluted. So the air is a mess, and the fires. And just think all these people that don't have health care. You don't have health care, and all this is going on.
Yeah, like we like if Medicare for all was a thing, we would be better off.
Mm-hmm.
And like Marianne Williamson said, we don't have a healthcare system. We have a sickness care system where we want people sick so the corporations can continue making money.
Mm-hmm. That's what it is. It's a money-making system.
And think about all the people that normally don't have respiratory problems that are all of a sudden developing respiratory illnesses because of these airborne pollutants that's in the atmosphere. If we, like right now, if we had hemp planted, you would not see the air quality like it is because hemp would sequester all of this smoke as well. It would take the carbon from the smoke and turn it into oxygen. It would be filtering out all of this airborne pollutants that we're seeing. That's why I'm always going to passionately fight until we have hemp fuel.
Mm-hmm.
We need hemp. And this also coincides with the next article that I have up. And it's about what's going on with the deadly heat and the toxic smoke that's enveloping the U.S. And this is from Jake Johnson, who wrote this article for Common Dreams that states we need to declare a climate emergency as deadly heat and toxic smoke envelope the U.S. We can't afford to wait. Climate action now.
And that's the
More
truth.
than 120 million people across the U.S., over a third of the country's population, were living under air quality alerts as of late Wednesday as smoke from hundreds of out of control wildfires in Canada blanketed much of the Northeast and Midwest, temporarily leaving Detroit and Chicago with the most polluted air in the world. Michigan's air quality alert was extended through Thursday as weather forecasters expected low-level winds to change direction, potentially resulting in more smoke and reduced visibility as a result of the Canadian wildfires, the Detroit Free Press noted on Wednesday. Residents of Michigan and other U.S. states were reported smelling burning plastic, prompting toxicologists at Michigan's Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy observe the wood fires emit a lot of volatile organic compounds, also known as VOCs, that you see listed on so many of our aerosol can products in your stores. And you see that it has a no VOC labeling on it, most of which are noticeable to our noses as the familiar campfire smell, but they break down quickly when exposed to UV radiation from sunlight. Other VOCs like benzoline, formaldehyde, and acrolein were also released as they outlast the campfire VOCs, the state officials said. It's these chemical compounds that you're smelling as the smoke wafts around for a few days and settles on the ground, reaching your nose. Dr. Glenn Clark, emergency center chief at Cornwell Health Beaumont Hospital in Grosse Pointe, Michigan, said in a statement to the Free Press that his medical center has seen a significant increase in respiratory complaints over the past week. I'm going to back up here to another smell that was also reported that I've seen on Facebook and Twitter, where some of these where it was smelling very much reminiscent to the smell of chlorine gas. Like, there's been some instances where the smoke smelled just like that. Like, it has like these like, think about all the plastics that are burning right now up there, especially the plastics that are in your homes, your businesses, etc. And this article also states we've seen both asthma and COPD patients who have been well controlled presenting with exacerbations requiring an increase in use of asthma medications, including rescue inhalers, said Clark. Even otherwise healthy individuals have come in complaining of chest tightness. As of Thursday morning, the Swiss firm IQ Air ranked Chicago and Detroit as the cities with the worst air quality in the world. Minneapolis briefly cracked the top 5 the previous day. CNN also reported Wednesday that Chicago asked all residences, especially those with heart and lung disease, other adults, pregnant people, and young children, to avoid outdoor activities and protect themselves from exposure. Chicago public schools and camps are also moving activities indoors, said city officials in a news release. The outlet added about 11 miles away in Evanston, Illinois, closed all swimming beaches and canceled a concert Tuesday due to the poor air quality, the city said on Facebook, asking residents to limit outdoor exposure through at least Wednesday. And you can see right here, even the National Weather Service that has the jurisdiction over Chicago and many other surrounding areas, where they even stated on Twitter that the poor air quality due to the smoke from the Canadian wildfires will continue through Thursday. Everyone should avoid prolonged outdoor activities, and those with chronic respiratory issues should stay indoors if possible. And there's a link right there where you can see airnow.gov for additional forecasts and safety information. And you could see where they had details on poor air quality and all that for northern Illinois and northwestern Indiana, which I think that's where their jurisdiction oversees those portions right there. This is scary. Like, this it's so scary, it's speechless.
You're right. It is very frightening. It's scary. And you have the Biden administration acting like nothing's happening, that everything's going to be okay.
Exactly.
It's complete foolishness.
Like, they see nothing wrong with this because they're bought by the industries that are responsible for these climate crises.
It's a crime against humanity.
Exactly, and that's why we need to dump these corrupt incumbents. As air quality deteriorated across Northeast and in the Midwest, the U.S. South and Southwest experienced scorching temperatures with at least 9 people dying of heat related causes in Texas. This is what we've been warning about. More extreme heat leaked to the climate crisis, the youth led Sunrise Movement tweeted on Wednesday. We need to declare a climate emergency, the group added, reiterating a long-standing demand that President Joe Biden has thus far rejected. Late Wednesday afternoon, the National Weather Service wrote on social media that the dangerous heat persists for much of the southern U.S., including here in Georgia now, where tens of millions of people are living under heat advisories. Heat is the leading cause of weather-related fatalities each year, the agency stressed. Take it seriously. If you're watching and you're listening, if there is a local cooling shelter in your local area, get to it and you stay well hydrated. The Washington Post reported that much of the U.S. felt like a blazing inferno on Wednesday as record heat attacked the South like a blowtorch. Thick smoke from the Canadian wildfires blanketed the Great Lakes region, and triple-digit temperatures threatened to wallop California for the first time this year. Scientists said climate change helped shape the weather conditions that were causing misery and putting lives at risk from Mexico to Canada. The Post also added, there was no disputing the fact. If it wasn't way too smoky, it was way too hot. And you can see right here where a lead headline from the Washington Post also addressed that, where heat and smoke are smothering much of the U.S. and putting millions of lives at risk. Yet we have a government controlled by the fossil fuel industry that refuses to take any action.
Mm-hmm.
Texas is seeing a heat wave so deadly that the state is breaking all-time records for energy usage. The Institute for Policy Studies wrote Wednesday, Detroit, Chicago, and Minneapolis are among the 4 cities with the worst air quality in the world due to the Canadian wildfire smoke. We cannot afford to wait. Climate action now. And that was by Jake Johnson, who was a staff writer for Common Dreams.
He's very good. He's a very good writer.
If we do not take this with a grain of salt, if we don't take this climate emergency more seriously than we are doing, then we're dooming our own existence as a human species. Like, this is getting scary.
It's very scary. And the thing was, when Biden was running and when Democrats run, they always say they're going to do something. They always bring up the environment. They always, the whole time a Republican is in office, they bring up everything the Republican is not doing and how they would do different if they were in office. And that's been a big lie. We have not seen Biden or the Democrats do anything where the environment is concerned.
No, we have not.
We're on
We have
fire
not
and he's
seen
busy in
any
Ukraine.
serious climate action at all.
No.
And I'm going to continue bringing this stuff up, even if the wildfire smoke makes my voice hoarse. I don't care. I will go outside with a blowhorn across my rural small town with a poster board demanding climate action. I don't care. Enough
Too
is
many
enough.
people are going to die. This is a war. This is a
This
war
is
where
a
we're going to see
war
people
that has
dying.
not fired a single weapon except what is going on with the climate emergency. And also, we need to end that war in Ukraine if we're wanting to take the climate emergency even more seriously. And that also brings me to the next article. It's another Common Dreams article where 360 groups asked Biden to end oil and gas on public lands by 2035. What do you think his answer was? Absolutely not. And this article here is from Jessica Corbett, who is a really, really great writer.
Mhm.
I love her work and I love her articles and her insight. Campaigners blasted the rejection of their petition as beyond disappointing and an appalling abdication of climate leadership. As U.S. President Joe Biden seeks re-election as climate and emergency justice, as a so-called climate and environmental justice champion, his administration on Thursday officially rejected a petition from over 360 organizations to phase out oil and gas extraction for public lands and waters by 2035. So we already see here, which is a recurring theme with this administration. He did say when he was running for the presidency of the country, when he was then candidate Joe Biden, that he would end all of this by 2035. What does he do? He fires up more pipeline projects. The Mountain Valley project being one of them, the Willow project being another. How many more are we going to see? And it's beyond disappointing that the administration has opted to deny our petition and hide behind other rule-making efforts that are likely to prove ineffective in the long-term run in this code red climate movement moment, declared Hallie Templeton, legal director for Friends of the Earth. The U.S. and the world need bold action to phase out fossil fuels, she stressed. We will keep fighting and holding federal officials accountable. Well, you also need to hold state elected officials accountable because they're also responsible for the climate crisis as well. Like, don't just hold federal officials accountable, hold your state legislatures accountable. Climate and rights groups filed the legal petition in January of 2022, as Common Dreams reported at the time, after the U.S. Department of the Interior ignored the document for months. The organizations sued to compel a response in April. In a reply released Thursday, Laura Daniel Davis, Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of Land and Mineral Management at the Department of Interior, wrote that, I have considered your petition and have decided not to initiate the rulemaking you requested for the reasons discussed in this letter because the department has a robust rulemaking agenda already underway to address the climate crisis and implement reforms to our conventional energy programs and has insufficient resources to undertake the proposed rulemaking at the time. That denial of this petition means that the Department of Interior is under the control of major fossil fuel industries. They're totally bought and paid for. We already know that. After detailing some of the department and administrative efforts underway, including under the Inflation Reduction Act that Biden signed last year, Daniel Davis noted that although your petition also sets out legal and scientific analyses to support the proposed rulemaking, I will not address those arguments here given the decision to deny the petition based on the competing priorities detailed above. I appreciate the thought and effort behind your petition, she concluded. This administration shares your concerns regarding the urgency of the climate crisis and is directing its limited resources in an effort to address them. Yeah, they're not addressing them at all because I have not seen any official statements from the Department of Interior. So we know that they're taking a lot of money from fossil fuel groups right off the bat.
And we've seen it on Joe Firestone's shows.
Yeah.
He's over candidates and all the money that they're taking.
Yeah, look at how much money that the fossil fuel industry invests in elections after election. And as a time where this is the most important election, we need to get people elected who will take the climate crisis even more seriously. Campaigners from the group behind the petition challenged Daniel Davis' claims and accused the administration of serving big oil. To claim that the Biden administration doesn't have the resources to take real climate action on federal fossil fuels is vacuous and beyond hypocritical. Leaving the fossil fuel industry in control of the oil and gas spigot is an appalling abdication of the climate leadership on public lands, said Taylor McKinnon of the Center for Biological Diversity. To claim that the Biden administration doesn't have the resources to take real climate action on federal fossil fuels is vacuous and beyond hypocritical. This is the definition of lip service, McKinnon continued. The administration acknowledges the urgency to address the climate crisis and meanwhile avoids every opportunity to take meaningful action on the fossil fuels under its control. Jeremy Nichols, Climate and Emergency Program Director for Wild Earth Guardians, was similarly frustrated, charging that the Department of Interior continues to bend over backwards to accommodate the fossil fuel industry. Which that's what they're doing. They're bending over and kissing the ass of the fossil fuel executives that own them.
Mm-hmm. And they're willing to destroy us and kill the planet.
Yeah, look at what's going on with the wildfire and all this. If the department would actually take comprehensive and meaningful steps to aid our nation's transition away from oil, gas, and coal, and truly reduce greenhouse emissions, it would save them time and money and would help spare the costly consequences of climate change, Nicholas added. The DOI letter and activists' frustration over it come as the Biden administration continues oil and gas leases on federal lands. This week's sale for 116 parcels totaling 127,000 acres in Wyoming allowed the federal government holding auctions for land in Kansas, New Mexico, North Dakota, and Oklahoma since late May. Critics have highlighted that despite Biden's campaign promise to ban new oil and gas leasing on public lands and waters, his administration has approved over 6,400 permits in its first 2 years, more than the same period of the previous administration. So we already see here in the first 2 years of the Biden administration, he granted more oil and gas permits in 2 years than Trump did the entire 4 years of his presidency. The Biden administration should be swiftly ending the era of fossil fuels, not expanding new oil drilling and dirty infrastructure, said Nicole Guino, senior fossil fuels program manager at Friends of the Earth, in a statement Thursday. By continuing to sacrifice our public lands and approve enormous fossil fuel projects, President Biden is poisoning communities and throwing his so-called climate presidency out of the window, she asserted. Biden must immediately cancel these lease sales and reserve our rapid descent into irreparable climate catastrophe. And that's by Jessica Corbett as well. So we already see the devastating consequences going on here with that. He said when he was running for president that he would end all of this. So, yeah.
And it was imperative to get Trump out of office. The planet could not handle 4 years of Trump.
It sounds like Trump was better on the environment than Joe Biden is.
Yeah.
And that's crazy for anybody to say that Donald Trump was more serious about the climate and environment than Joe Biden was.
It is crazy when you think about it. And I think we didn't have the issue with Russia, Ukraine. I mean, he went and he spoke with people. He spoke with Putin. I mean, he did go to North Korea and spoke with Kim Jong-un. He spoke with many different leaders. He did his job. He's supposed to be the one that sits and talks to people, negotiates
You
with
are
people.
also, even when you're in that office of the presidency, you're supposed to also get off your ass and even go engage with people who don't like us.
Exactly. That's what you're supposed to do.
And try to normalize new relations. But yeah, Joe Biden has broke every single one of his campaign promises. And for the people at the Department of Interior to sit there and outright lie, saying that they don't have the funds or resources, well, who funds the federal government? It is not we, the taxpayer. It is the government that is self-funding because they are a currency issuer. So they can create new resources and create more funding like that. All they have to do is pass a congressional appropriations bill, but they're refusing to do that. They know the federal government is a currency issue. They just don't want to put more funds and create new resources to tackle the climate crisis.
Because they're so involved with that whole crooked neoliberalism, crony capitalism program.
And this also brings me to another one of Biden's many broken campaign promises that he's even broke himself. And this talks about the Mountain Valley pipeline and the Titan submarine disaster. We have seen what happens when things are built from substandard materials and faulty design. When President Biden agreed to the debt deal in May, the Mountain Valley pipeline became his pipeline. Climate scientists tell us it's exactly the wrong thing to be building in 2023, but the president fast-tracked it anyway. He may claim that his hands were tied by Manchin and the Republicans, who were willing to hold the economy hostage if they didn't get their way. But no one is tying the president's hand when it comes to important safety measures regarding the Mountain Valley Pipeline. For more than 50 years, there's been a federal law on the books that says all pipe must have an external coating that is sufficiently ductile to resist cracking. The purpose of the coating is to prevent corrosion over the many years and decades that the pipeline will be in service. The reason it has to be sufficiently ductile, flexible to resist cracking, because 40-feet sections of pipe flex quite a bit when they are moved from the factory to the pipe yard to the right of way and finally into a ditch. The factory applied coating is designed to flex, but it loses its flexibility as well as other qualities if it sits out in the sun for too long. The National Association of Pipe Coating Applicators says that the coating shouldn't be exposed to the sun for more than 6 months, but the Mountain Valley pipe was coated 6 or 7 years ago, and most of it has been exposed to the sun in pipe yards along right of ways ever since. So we already see a new problem.
Mm-hmm.
We see a major problem, and it's also similar to that of the Keystone XL pipeline, which was no longer fit for the purpose. And also in 2010, a gas pipeline exploded in San Bruno. It killed 8 people, injured more than 60, and destroyed or damaged more than 100 homes. It was a 30-inch pipeline. The MVP is a 42-inch pipeline that can operate at 4 times the pressure. It is critical that the Mountain Valley pipeline have the top quality and corrosion-proof tubing, which it currently does not. So they're going ahead with this knowing that it poses a major hazard. And I'm not going to go any further in that article, but we already see the major hazard that it proposes for everyone around.
And this has been going on for a long time. And we've been talking about this for a long time. When Obama was in office, we were talking about this. And it seems that people keep thinking the Democrats are going to do something. They claim to do something. They claim to be for the people, but we don't see anything.
We never do. I don't think we're ever going to see them take any swift action. And
like
drives me
insane. They have ruined Ohio with fracking.
It drives me insane knowing that the taxes do not fund federal spending and how they're using public funds to fund all this instead of funding projects and subsidizing farmers to grow hemp and taking these industrial sites all across this rural parts of this country and putting in hemp fuel processing facilities.
It's as if they want to get rid of a portion of the population that doesn't have the health care, the population that has health issues. You know, there's a portion of the population that's not going to be able to survive this.
And I don't know how many more people are going to die as a result of this. Like, it's scary.
It's very scary. And the sad thing is, we know it doesn't have to happen. And as you said, we're monetary sovereign. We can easily take care of this crisis, this situation. The fact is, the Biden administration doesn't want to do anything about it. And Democrats don't want to do anything about it. because
And you
they keep
haven't
telling
seen
us that they're going to
and
do
you haven't
something and
seen
they don't.
AOC or anybody with the fraud squad addressing any of this either.
Hmm. And they're the ones that get elected to office because they keep claiming they will do something.
And as
But people
Kay
already know
says
the
right
Republicans
here,
aren't.
we should be in Canada helping them combat the fires. Like we should be sending up firefighters instead of sending military militarized sending more military equipment over to Ukraine. We could be sending military equipment into Canada to help them with firefighters. We can be deploying our troops up to Canada to help them.
Mm-hmm.
And also, Kay makes a really good point here that they have ruined Ohio with fracking. Like the planet cannot take any more. Like I think the planet is on the cusp of being done. It's sad to see how we're not seeing any action being taken.
No, it's just the money. It's just these people that think that money for their campaigns while the population dies and the planet dies. They don't care.
They don't care at all.
And they won't even give people health care to survive the catastrophe that's been thrown on us.
It's sad how we have a lack of health care in this country, yet no action.
And the point is, it doesn't have to be. That's what's infuriating. It doesn't have to be. We have the ability to have it that everyone has health care. We have that ability to do that. We have the ability to clean up the USA and the planet. We have the ability, but we're not utilizing it.
And just the other night when we read where, like on your show the other night, where the U.S. government has been failing on its duty to help these underdeveloped countries with their climate crisis.
Mm-hmm. It's as if they want people to die.
Mm-hmm. They do not care. They do not care at all.
And you talk about the haves and the have-nots. How much money and how much greed? You know, it's just greed, and then these people wanting to be in office, wanting to have this sense of power. But they're destroying everybody with their greed and the power they're not using in the right way. They're just using their power to line their pockets.
And it's also called, there's no telling how many people are going to develop health illnesses because of the smoke coming down out of Canada. Like people that are normally healthy, who normally don't have respiratory illnesses at all, that are going to be developing this. And we're going to start seeing hospitals return back to like COVID normal levels because of it. Like we saw in that video earlier, where people have brought back their masks who have probably not worn them in weeks or months, who have brought them out to wear because of the smoke. It's so thick that it's making them sick. And think about all the airborne pollutants that's included in the smoke from, you have these cars that are and all kind of other vehicles that are on fire that has plastic components. You also have plastics in your home that are burning as well. It's causing even more pollutants to emit into the atmosphere. And there's no telling how many parts per million of carbon there is in the atmosphere right now. It's probably at record levels at the point of I think years ago it's probably at the point of no return. So I saw, like, I think a few years back where a Brian Neil Rosser, who ran for the Georgia State House of Representatives, he noted that if you have more than 400 parts per million of carbon in Earth's atmosphere, then that is the point of no return, that it's only going to grow worse and spiral even further out of control. And that's what Brian Rosser said in a post. And he posted, like, at the time we were at 415, and that was scary. And
like you said, it's a very scary situation, Greg.
It's a very scary situation. And Kay, you're 100% right here. When you say I call it sick care, and you worked in it when it was not for profit. And Marianne Williamson in 2020, when she was running for president, she was also running on Medicare for All, and she said that we have a sickness care system that does not address the needs of the community. And also, according to what I'm seeing here from Hard Lens Media, oh Lord, I'm going to add this, and this is going to be the final part of tonight's show. Oh my God. It's 43 minutes long, but I'm going to leave it in the comments, and it's from Hard Lens Media, where toxic gas released from a BP refinery in Indiana is poisoning the neighboring communities. And all I have to say is, dump the corruption. If we're going to have true environmental justice in this country and around the world, we're going to have to dump these people who were bought and paid for by the fossil fuel industry.
There are so many of them.
And not to mention those that are also bought and paid for by the private health insurance companies that are also playing a vital role in this, where people cannot get access to health care to even see a doctor. They're going to die because of the lack of health care, like especially the poor people that are experiencing these dangerous heat waves.
If we had a true healthcare system, that healthcare system would want people to come in for what you call preventative care. You come in for wellness checks to make sure you're okay. And they would be giving you advice on healthy eating. It would have foods that wouldn't be filled with GMO and everything else.
That sounds like a federal job guarantee.
Right. They don't want you to get sick. So they're actively looking for you not to get sick. And that is completely different than what we have.
And that's why we not only need to fight for climate justice, we need to fight for a better healthcare system. But before we can have the healthcare system in place, we're going to have a federal job guarantee, which transitions those employees from the private sector into the new public sector that's going to be created.
Right. And also, we're going to need the farmers. We're going to need to be planting the hemp and also getting away from GMO seeds. having real seeds,
Yeah, have
because we have to get away
full-blown
from
hemp
everything
seed
that's making
that could
people
be
sick.
planted twice a year, and we can even make paper and all sorts of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be looking for more stuff to cover in tomorrow night's show, which I will be back in my new schedule for everybody watching, or the people that are going to watch this in the future. My new schedule is going to be Saturday and Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. I'm not going to be doing anything during the week except joining Dee or Joe.
And that's good, because this gives us a chance really to focus on the environment. We have the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and you don't have a show following you, so we can just continually talk.
Exactly. And it's been good to be back. And I thank you, Dee, for joining me tonight on my comeback. Thank you,
I'm happy
Kay,
to be here.
for joining in the comments. Your comments have meant a lot tonight. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Turn on that notification bell. And also, don't forget to go over to my friend Dee's channel, Around the World with Dee and Friends. And also, our other good friend, Joe Firestone, with Joe Firestone Empowering Democracy. Subscribe to them as well. And let's lift each other up in this community and have true unity here, so that way we can have a good way and build a new foundation for a better leftist cause.
Yes, we need everyone. We need to unite.
Exactly. And thank y'all all for showing up tonight, and have a great Saturday evening.
Yes, thank you and good night. And thank you, Greg. Thank you, Kay. And everybody in the future, thank you and good night.
Later, taters.
Later, taters. Yep.